Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Edna White, and I am your host of Keeping It Real on Purpose. This is the podcast where we come together with real talk about real issues and struggles in life, relationships, and business on purpose. I am your host once again, Edna White, and today we have a great guest where we're featuring authors. Today is Chrysta Bairre, author of Beautiful Badass: How to Believe in Yourself Against the Odds. Welcome to Keeping It Real on Purpose, Chrysta.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to be on this podcast, and especially where like the purpose is to be real, to be authentic, to have real conversations, because
Absolutely.
that is 100% what I am about.
Oh, I like it already.
Mhm.
So tell us about this book, Beautiful Badass. How did you come up with that title? Beautiful Badass. I like it. How did you come up with that title?
It was an iterative process coming up with the title for sure. And I think it ultimately boiled down to I wanted to recognize the core truths, and that is that we are all beautiful and we are all badass, despite
Yeah.
the circumstances that we've had to live through, the hardships that we have faced, despite all of the things what other people think about us, and sometimes even the things that we think about ourselves.
Yeah. And a tough. Sometimes that's tough, more tough than about other people, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, in my book, I talk about the itty bitty shitty committee, which is that voice of
Woo,
self-doubt
love
in my
it.
head.
I love it. Tell us more about that itty bitty shitty committee. Tell us about that. I want to hear this.
Yeah, so that's it's a name for that voice of self-doubt, that little nagging voice that says, "You're not good enough. Who do you think you are?" My voice, my itty bitty shitty committee, it likes to say, "Who do you think you are?" And I tell you, that thought pops into my head, and that will stop me in my tracks every time, even if it only stops me for a few seconds nowadays. But it used to stop me for a whole heck of a lot longer.
Oh yeah. I think we all had that. We've all had that in our lives. Being as a woman, being in a male dominated world, any
Mhm.
industry, well, back in my day, was held by males. So
Mhm.
it was like very difficult, and you always had to, you fall back. You're like, oh, am I qualified to kind of talk
Mhm.
with this guy who's got a deep voice? You always, kind of question yourself. How do you, what would you recommend, or what's in your book to kind of really move forward from that thought?
It is just taking small steps forward and
Mhm.
doing something every day. And this is actually in the book, doing something every day to show yourself and the world that you do believe in yourself. There's so many conflicting messages, and for women in particular, and then I think anyone with intersectional identities. So when you have multiple marginalized identities, you have
Right.
so many people telling you, what you should be, what's wrong with you, how to act, how to look, how to speak, how to think in so many situations. And a lot of times that messaging is even, it conflicts itself. I mean, you can
Yeah.
be told in the same situation to act a certain way and then be also told that don't act that way. And so there's so many conflicting messages that it becomes really hard to know how to take up our space in the world, how to
Mhm.
show up authentically. We think that the correct way to be successful or to thrive in life or thrive in business is to like follow in someone else's footsteps. But let's face it, that person whose footsteps we're following it in is, a cisgender white man. And I am not those things. So that's not going to work for me.
Absolutely. That's beautiful the way you put that. It's really because we get to that. And I will say I'm pretty much more practical person. I thank you for what you're saying. So like I entered the real estate world when, I don't think there were very few black women who were brokers and very few black people who were brokers. So coming into that industry, I first thought that I had to compete with them, like you just said, compete with them. I'm like, and then I'm like, I had to get a Mercedes. I had to get this like amazing watch. I never wore watches, but I had to get, I had to compete in that in a arena. And I finally realized it's like I don't have to compete because I could be myself.
Mhm.
And who likes it will like it. Who doesn't. So how do you really transition your, because it's really about emotions. It's really about your character. How do you transition in that? I know that your book Beautiful Badass kind of shares that.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I want to share is first of all, one of my inspirations for writing this book, because I grew up in pretty extreme poverty
Hmm.
and amongst other things, and a lot of mental illness in my family, and I'm neurodivergent and some things like that. And, I grew up with so many times other people telling me, like, if you want to turn your life around, if you want to make
Hmm.
something of yourself, these are the things you need to do.
Right.
But every time I heard that from people, and as I was growing, when I would read books or I would go to talks and I would listen to speakers at the front of the room,
Hmm.
so much of the time, the person who's at the front of the room, the person who is the author sharing the information, the person who is mentoring or guiding someone else, had a much, much higher level of privilege than me. And their
Hmm.
advice that they were giving me was based on their own level of privilege. They didn't
Right.
realize, they didn't even know how to acknowledge the advantages that were built in for them that
Yeah.
made their path easier. And so they looked at the rest of the world like, it's not hard. You just do this, this, and this. And
Mm.
you can have whatever life you want. You can have it all. And it's like, well, that is true. The more privilege you have, the more true that is. The less privilege you have, the less true that is, which doesn't
Hmm.
mean that people with less privilege can't make something of themselves or do amazing hard things, but it's not going to be the same path as
Right.
someone who was just born with a lot more resources. It's not going
Hmm.
to be the same path. It's going to be sometimes a different outcome. And I want us all as individuals to like stop making ourselves wrong for not being able to do things the way that someone else was able to successfully do them, or to achieve things that someone else was able to achieve. And so, I think that it starts with like, what does it look like to turn that idea around? And I think it starts with acknowledging that some of the people that we might look up to, some of our mentors, some of the people that we might be seeking to learn from, probably do have some really good nuggets of information to share, but we also have to understand, you know, how our situation is different from that person's, and say, okay, well, this is how they did it, but my path might look different. And what can I do based on the resources that I have available to me? Because that's where our true power lies, is to start from where we are. If we try to
Hmm.
start from where we aren't, we're not going to get as much done.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We're not going to get as much done. That's really um, good information for us. Audience, you're hearing what Chrysta is saying. And it's amazing because it's showing us to be beautiful. And beauty consists of a myriad of things that's part of us, but of being a badass at it. And I like what she's saying, believing in yourself against the odds. So, could you tell us, while you're writing this book, what was your favorite part of it?
The favorite part of the book itself or the favorite part of the process?
Uh, you know what? Two questions. Favorite part of the process. I like that. The favorite part of the process. Let's do that first.
I mean, I have to tell you, my imposter syndrome came up so much during writing this book, all the way through publishing it, all the way through getting ready for my book launch
Uh-huh.
party. And so there were so many parts of this process that were really scary and overwhelming. And it felt like the itty bitty shitty committee. Who do you think
Mhm.
you are? Who do you
Right,
think
right,
you
right.
are? Came up a lot. But my favorite part of this process was really feeling that imposter syndrome, noticing that imposter syndrome, and just keep going anyway, to just keep writing,
Yeah.
and send it out to beta readers. I was terrified to send my book out to beta readers, and I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually going to read this, and what if it's terrible? And then they're going to know how terrible it is because they're reading it. And it was like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
doing the thing that scared the crap out of me, doing it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, being criticized. That's the thing,
Yeah.
is like being criticized. Oh God, it's okay if you're your own editor, all of that, but to send it out to beta readers, that is the most nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And
It's
certainly, like,
nerve-wracking.
once it was published, it was like people I knew reading it. I was nervous about people I knew reading it, because
Yeah,
I just thought, well, are they gonna read it
yeah,
and think it's not good?
yeah.
And
Or they think we're weird.
oh yeah, I'm definitely weird. So yes.
Or they think we're very weird, and it's like, wow, I didn't see that when she was younger, and all that stuff, wow, maybe she's a little weird, and it's that is a good point to bring out, because a lot of authors get stuck there,
Mhm.
right at that point, that they don't want to send it out to other people. I don't want people to see my they might try to take my intellectual property. And I also coach people, because that's one of their goals, is a book. And so a lot of them will say to me, it's my intellectual property. They might duplicate something. I said, really? I said, no, real. And then I was like, really? I said, let's talk about that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that. What's so intellect? Is it is it literary science? Is it a project that's like, we call it something that science has never seen before? Like, no. I said, it's from you, right? So who would copy that?
Mhm.
Let's dig into that. Is it because you don't want to, because you're fearful of them saying it's not great? And then we get to the crux of it, which it really is fear. It's really fear-based. And you're right. So now to my second question, what's the favorite part of the book that you've written? What's your favorite part?
I have a ton of favorite parts, and one notable one I want to mention briefly. I wrote a story when I was 8 years old and won a story contest about a car that was allergic to gas.
Mm-hmm.
And so I share that story in the book, and that's one of my favorite parts, is getting to share that story with the world again.
Uh-huh.
But then there's another chapter in here. It's called How to Believe in Yourself When Things Aren't Going Well, because, right, it's a lot easier to have confidence and believe in what we're doing when things are
Mhm.
going well. And
Right.
then what does it look like when things aren't going well? How do
Right.
we still connect with that same energy
Yeah.
and motivation?
Okay, that's beautiful. Can you read us just an excerpt from there?
Absolutely, I would love to. So this is from the chapter, How to Believe in Yourself When Things Aren't Going Well.
Mm-hmm.
Like many ideas in this book, believing in yourself is a bit of a paradox. It is the hardest and the easiest thing to do. When you've had to struggle and fight and overcome, you might believe it's your fault that you wound up in that situation, that you must have done something to deserve your lot in life. Maybe someone even told you it was your fault. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't want it enough. You weren't good enough. Those are lies. It's not your fault, so give yourself a break. Better even, give yourself some credit. You've had to struggle and fight and overcome. Look at all you've been through. Look at the incredible person you are. You, my friend, are one incredible, resilient, amazing, resourceful, brave human being. That is not a lie. The hard part in believing in yourself is challenging old thoughts and beliefs, the stories you were told when you had it hard, when you tried and failed, when you didn't feel as good as everyone else seemed to, formed in the foundation of your self-image, and you had to challenge that image to be able to believe in yourself. Other people will always have lots of opinions about what you think and say and do. One tip for challenging their beliefs is to remember that other people's opinions are none of your business. Let me
Wow.
repeat that. Other people's opinions of you are none of your business. Changing your actions to change someone else's opinion isn't effective. At the end of your life, there's only one person you can please, and that person is you.
Wow. That is powerful. Audience, I know that I feel different just from hearing it. And that is really powerful. So I haven't received your book yet, but I'm going to get it. And I'm definitely going to come back to the audience to tell them about this book, because I believe that's how to believe in yourself. See, we tell everyone to believe in yourself against all odds, but we never say how to. And I think this book will go an amazingly long way. And I thank you for reading that for us. So how can we find you? How can my audience and audiences around the world find you?
Thank you for asking, and just such a pleasure to be here. Thank you again for that as well. And so my name is Chrysta Bairre, and I have a business. It's called Live, Love, Work. I'm a career coach, a speaker, and author. And so anywhere on social, Facebook, Instagram, or on my website, you can find me. It's Live, Love, Work. My website is liveandlovework.com, and you can find the book anywhere that you can special order. If you have a local bookstore that's your favorite, you can special order it from there. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you want to go.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, audience, thank you all for being here. And thank you, Chrysta, for being here with us today to share your book, Beautiful Badass, How to Believe in You Against the odds, not all the odds, against the odds, because all has nothing to do with you. But against the odds. Thank you so much. And audience, I appreciate you all being here today. Again, I will have all Chrysta's information available in the comment section under the video and also in the audio. But thank you all again. This is Keeping It Real on Purpose. We thank you, and we're going to say goodbye for now.